and now I go to this slideshow. So, good morning to everyone. I hope that we are all doing good. And now let us continue with laser beam machining. And today we will be discussing about some of the other applications of laser beam. Last time we discussed about laser cutting, drilling, and welding. Very quickly, we'll go through some of other interesting applications of laser which are being carried out in manufacturing industry. And these applications include laser surface hardening, alloying, cladding, and additive manufacturing. Now, to recapitulate what we discussed in the previous lecture on laser beam machining, as I mentioned that we described laser cutting, laser drilling, and laser welding. And what we found that the laser beam has got certain specialties, and those are high power. As we know that up to several kilowatts in continuous wave mode, we can get laser power. And in laser pulse mode, when we are operating in a pulse mode, we can get laser pulse energy up to several tens of joule. That is, you can get up to 100 joule energy in single pulse. And the pulse duration can be varied from millisecond time scale to smaller, less than picosecond time. That is hundreds of femtosecond you can get. And picosecond, that is 10 to the minus 12. Femtosecond is 10 to the minus 15 second. So you can get 10 to the power minus 12 to 10 to the power minus 13. You can get more pulse duration. That is the shortest pulse duration which are available for the commercial lasers. And these are being used for material processing applications, especially the short pulse lasers are useful for micro machining. Now, the focal spot diameter, another special properties we saw that the laser beam can be focused to very, very small spot, and you can get the practical laser which are available. You can focus its beam to spot diameter as small as 50 micron. So when you have got kilowatts of laser power focused to such a small spot diameter, you can get very high power densities in the range of gigawatt per centimeter square and more. Another very interesting specialties of the laser beam is that you can shape the beam in a different geometrical shapes. Like you can get circular beam, which is typically you get from any laser system. However, you can modify depending upon your application in the form of annular beam, or you can have triangular, square, rectangular, even line beam you can generate. And why we are talking about this aspect, that this has been facilitated laser to be used for various laser surface modification applications. Now, when you take a laser beam and scan the laser beam over the, let me get the pointer. Okay. So when you have got a laser beam, like here a square shot of a laser beam has been, rectangular beam has been shown, and it could be even a circular beam. And when you are scanning over any material, then what will happen that this laser beam is going to heat up the material as it is being scanned on the material. Now, if you see the temperature distribution along the cross section, along the transverse direction, this you will have this type of profile of the temperature. At the middle of the path, the temperature is going to be maximum, and then it is going to gradually go down as you go away from radially out. And this is because of the heat conduction, because the material we are talking about is some metal like stainless steel or any other material. And if you see the temperature increase along the path of the laser beam, along the direction of the laser scan, so this is the profile of the temperature. Here it is going to be the fast cooling, fast heating. So as the beam is propagating because of the heat conduction, some material ahead of the laser beam is also going to get heated up, and at the laser where the laser beam is momentarily there, the temperature is going to maximum, and because of the heat conduction you will get this type of profile. And in the trailing edge, the temperature is going to go down very fast because of the cooling. So as the laser beam is moved away from any point, that point is going to get heated up, and after the laser beam is scanned over that point, it is going to cool at a very fast rate because of the or through heat conduction in rest of the material. Okay. And because the heat is penetrating through heat conduction, therefore the surface temperature is going to be maximum because the laser beam gets absorbed in any metal on the top surface, and then the heat conducts along the depth, and the temperature along the depth is going to be reducing, and it will have this type of profile. What we see here, that whenever we are taking a laser beam and scanning it, then a thin top layer, we can heat it above certain temperature, and when the beam is moving away, that material that thin layer which has got heated up to certain temperature, after the laser beam is being scanned over, it is going to cool at a very, very fast rate. And the fast cooling rate could be of the order of 10 to the power 2 to 10 to the power 6 degrees centigrade or even more. And this effect is exploited in creating very special properties on the surface because of the heating and very fast cooling. So now we see some of the applications why we try to use this for surface modification. Now, there are a couple of different ways in which the laser has been utilized for surface treatment, and these are laser surface transformation hardening, laser melting and resolidification, laser surface alloying, and laser surface cladding. And why is there is need for surface treatment? This is to improve the hardness of the surface, also the strength and wear resistance, corrosion resistance, and fatigue life. All these properties are the surface characteristics. Like if you consider in a scissor, like here it is a cutter, a wire cutter. The wire cutter, only the edge of the wire cutter that comes into contact with the wire, and that gets worn out. So what we need to extend its life is to have this edge where it is going to make contact with the wire to be very hard, and it should be wear resistant. Rest of the material can be ductile, it need not be so hard, but this edge, that surface which is undergoing wear and tear while it is being in use, that needs to be hardened in order to extend its life. Similarly, if you take a circular bent saw, the circular cutting disc. So here at the edge, the material, this is rotating at a very fast rate, and when you are putting through any material, this is going to shear of the material. So wear and tear is going to take place just around this periphery of this cutting disc. Similarly, if you consider a die and punch, so let us suppose it is a complex like die mold is made, and when it is being used, only this edge is coming into contact with the material at very high pressure, and this edge sharp is going to wear out. So what we need, that only this selected area of at the edge needs to be hardened. So as we discussed in the previous slide, that the laser beam can be focused to a localized area at a desired power density. So we can use the laser as a heat source and treat this area where we need to create the increase the hardness. So many engineering component basically which the surface needs to be improved, surface characteristics in terms of its strength, hardness, and corrosion resistance we need to improve. Further, the fatigue life, like whenever any material is undergoing cyclic mechanical load, like when you have got any material like this type of scissor or cutter. Many a times, if you are using for cutting at a certain frequency in time, then there could be fatigue stress may be developed, and because of that, it may fail. So this failure propagates from the surface. So one needs to improve the surface characteristics so that the life of the component can be extended. So the lasers have been used for improving the life of the component or treat the surfaces. And these are the four different ways in which you can improve the surface characteristics. So let us see that how these are done and how the lasers are being utilized here. So first we take the example of laser surface hardening, and this is done through phase transformation. So in order to understand the phase transformation mechanism, let us consider a carbon steel having steel less than around 0.7% carbon. Okay. So, and you take that this is an workpiece where I need to improve the surface characteristics. Okay, so what we do, you take a laser beam and then the top surface layer of the workpiece is heated by either a pulse laser or scanning a continuous wave, that is the CW laser beam. The surface temperature is maintained below the melting temperature, and for steel it is typically in the range of around 1450. So you don't want laser to melt the top surface. However, we want that through the heat conduction up to certain desired depth, which could be in the range of around 1 millimeter or so, the material should get heated up above the phase transformation temperature. And for this carbon steel, it is in the range of around 725 degrees centigrade. So what we are doing, we are controlling the laser power density and scan speed in such a way that without top surface being melted, a thin layer in the range of around 500 micron to 1 millimeter is heated above the phase transformation temperature. So what happens when you are increasing the temperature above the phase transformation temperature? So let us see. So usually when you take the carbon steel in which the percentage of carbon is in the range of, let us suppose 0.4% or so. So the microstructure, like the material, the structure of the material inside the material, if you see under the magnified image under the microscope, it will have ferrite phase and pearlite phase. And the ferrite is basically a low carbon phase. It has got very, very small amount of carbon which it can accommodate. Okay, it is having the microstructure or the crystal lattice in of body center cubic crystal for the ferrite. And the pearlite is basically having the lamellars of carbides and ferrites. Okay. So pearlite can accommodate lot of carbon. So all the carbons, like if you consider 0.4%, 0.5%, most of them are in this pearlite. And this ferrite doesn't have much carbon. So the pearlite is relatively soft material. So if you see the micro hardness of this material in this, which is in the form of having ferrite and pearlite microstructure, the Vickers micro hardness could be in the range of around 200 HV. That is the unit of hardness. So 200 or to 230, depending upon the type of carbon percentage and steel you take, it will be of that order. Now, once you hit above the phase transformation temperature, then what will happen? That this pearlite and ferrite is going to convert into another phase, which is known as austenite. And this austenite has got a face-centered cubic crystal structure, and it can accommodate higher quantity of carbon. So what will happen that carbon which are there in high quantity in pearlite, they will slowly diffuse in the pearlite first, make it very uniform carbon distribution, and then when you you keep the material at above 720 degree for a longer time, this carbon will further diffuse in the ferrite, and depending upon how long you keep it above the temperature, this entire microstructure is going to have homogeneous distribution of carbon, because our austenite phase can easily accommodate all the carbons if the carbon is below 0.7% or so. Okay. Now, if you allow after the laser beam has passed over there, or if it is a pulse laser, then after the end of the laser pulse, it will start cooling. Since if it is cool at a slow rate, then what will happen that it will again go back in the form of pearlite and ferrite, and we will get again the micro hardness will return to around 200 to 220 HV. But if you allow it to cool at a very fast rate, then what will happen that this carbon is not able to diffuse back to form pearlite in the lamellar forms and ferrite, but it is going to just try to readjust during that fast cooling and form another phase which is known as a martensite. And this martensite phase is very hard compared to your pearlite and ferrite, and depending upon the percentage carbon which we had in the steel, it could be in the range of around 700 to 600 to around 900 HV. Okay, so from 200 to 200 to 50 HV, you can get more than 700 HV if your carbon percentage is in the range of 0.4 to and 0.4 to around 0.7%. And thus the surface thin layer on the top surface is going to get heated up, is going to transform into martensite, which is very, very hard. As you will know that when the material is very hard, when it is forming in the martensite phase, it also tends to become brittle. You don't want the entire material workpiece to be brittle, because the brittle can undergo the brittle fracture. So you need bulk of the material to remain in ductile condition. However, only the top surface which undergoes wear and tear, that we need surface to be hardened, and thereby you can control the thickness to around 500 micron to a millimeter or so, where the surface is going to get converted into the martensite, and there the hardness is going to be increased. So one example is this impeller. When the impeller is rotating at a very fast speed, then whenever at the tip the linear velocity is maximum, and when it is compressing the air, if there is any particle, any dust particles are there, it is going to hit on this impeller, and there the wear and tear is going to be maximum. So one can easily just improve the hardness at the desired area on the surface of the workpiece or the impeller, and you can achieve very good, extend the life of the impeller. So this is the one way to do increase the surface characteristics by transformation hardening. So it is used usually for the carbon steel, where the carbon percentage is less than around 0.5%, 0.7% or so. Why we say so? Because if the carbons are in a very large quantity, then those will be in that form of flakes, and the time available during in the above 725 degrees centigrade is going to be not very long. And if you have got very high quantity of carbon, those will be in the form of graphite, and during that time of laser heating, it may not have enough time for carbon to diffuse from those localized area. If you want to give longer time, then what will happen? By heating with the laser, the top surface is also going to get melted. So it can, like the phase transformation hardening process can be utilized mostly for steel having low carbon. So if you have got high carbon, like if you take the cast iron, where the carbon percentage could be in the at the range of around 0.3% or so, there the carbon is in the form of a graphite flakes. Okay, and here by phase transformation hardening, you may not be able to achieve very homogeneous distribution of carbon. Okay, therefore, what you do, in order to provide enough time, what we do that we try to then melt the surface. Then, as you will know, that the diffusion rate depends on the temperature. So if you have the temperature above the melting temperature, and if it is in the molten state, then diffusion of carbon from the graphite flakes will be at a much higher rate. So here, what we do that in laser surface hardening and resolidification at fast cooling rates, improve surface characteristics, that is wear, corrosion resistance, through one or more of the following processes. What laser transformation hardening, here also you scan the laser beam at a certain controlled speed and allow a top surface, thin layer at the top surface of the order of a millimeter or so, you melt it. And because the power density is controlled in such a way that there is a very large temperature gradient on the between this top layer and rest of the bulk material. So once the laser beam is moved away, it is going to cool at very fast rate. So resolidification of the thin molten material is going to take place at a very fast rate. And this rate could be in the range of around 10 to the power 4 to 10 to the power 6 degree Kelvin per second or centigrade per second. So at such a fast cooling rate, what we will get? Your grain is going to refine. That is the formation of the smaller grain. So whatever the grain you get, like here in the earlier picture, you see that the grains were relatively large. So these grains were formed in the conventional cooling rate, which is in the range of a few degree per second, okay, or per minute. But here, since it is cooling at a very fast rate, so the crystal size cannot grow to very large size. So you are going to get much smaller grains. So this is called a process of grain refinement. And if you have got large number of grain, the surface area, the surface of the grain available will be much larger. So it is going to help to improve the wear characteristics. Also, it can homogenize the microstructure. Here you see the microstructure was having the perlite and ferrite, and this type of microstructure was there. But if you cool at a very fast rate, you can make the microstructure more homogeneous, because in the liquid phase, everything is now dissolved. All the graphite, carbons, and other elements which are there in the iron, they are going to get distributed very uniformly. If you cool it back very slowly, it will again return back to this type of microstructure. But if you cool at a very fast rate, then what you are going to get, you are going to get much more refined or homogeneous microstructure you are going to get. So when you have got more homogeneous microstructure, its characteristics gets improved compared to the bulk material. Also, you can increase the solid solubility. Now, as you know that if you are dissolving sugar in water, if you heat the water, the solubility of sugar is going to increase. But if you cool it, then again the sugar or salt is going to recrystallize and it will settle down at the bottom. So at high temperature, the solubility of any element is going to be more in iron, and then when you cool it again, they will slowly, if you are cooling, they will segregate out again. But if you cool at a very fast rate, that before they segregate and recrystallize in a separate elements, they may remain in a solid soluble condition. Okay, so you can enhance the solid solubility also. And if you are cooling at a very fast rate in the range of around, it was 6 degrees centigrade per second or more, then you during this fast cooling rate, the molten material which is getting solidified may not be able to make a good crystalline structure. Instead, it is going to form a amorphous phase or surface glazing. So it is going to form a metastable state, and that is the amorphous phase. And this amorphous phase, also known as a surface glazing process, will have much better tribological properties. Like if you consider the glass top surface, if you see that it is having much less friction. Okay, the friction coefficient of the glass is much smaller compared to if you take any metal surface like aluminum or stainless steel surface. Okay, so if you can make the top surface of the metal amorphous, then its friction coefficient is going to reduce. So the friction wear is also going to reduce. So either one or combination of these processes, depending upon what is your cooling rate, you can modify the top surface after melting and allowing it to getting resolidified at a very fast rate. And this is used for different types of material like cast iron, tool steel, titanium, aluminum, silicon alloy. Okay, and you get all the advantage of fast quenching. And one example is like automobile brake drum. This whenever we are pressing the pedal of the brake, this shoe makes contacts with this drum, and this drum is going to also wear out. The shoe also gets wear out, but the shoe after certain lakhs of cycle of braking cycles, if it gets wear out, then the shoe can be changed easily. But the drum is an integral part of the wheel and the automobile, so changing this is going to be costly affair. So if you increase the hardness of the inner lining of the brake, then you can extend its life and your brake will work for a longer time in a proper way. So this is one of the examples, and this brake is made of cast iron, so you can, which has got very high carbon, so you can just inside the surface you can just melt and resolidify at a very fast rate. And now the depth up to which you require these components to be hardened is in the range of around a millimeter or so, because any component which is getting wear out beyond a millimeter or so, that needs to be rejected, because it is not going to be suitable to further use. So you need to replace. So what you need, that only a millimeter thickness you need to harden. Now, if you want to further improve the surface characteristics, you can do the surface alloying, and also you can do the cladding. So in the above two example of surface hardening through phase transformation and remelting, the maximum improvement in the characteristics is limited by the base material itself, because we are not changing the base material. The material like carbon steel remains that, okay, and therefore it is going to give you certain amount of limited improvement. Now you consider a carbon steel. Whatever we do, the corrosion, the carbon steel is going to get corroded. But if you want to improve the corrosion property, then what you do, like you can put certain amount of chromium on the top surface and make a top surface alloyed with chromium. And as you know, that the stainless steel doesn't get corroded compared to carbon steel, and the main reason for better corrosion resistance of steel is the presence of chromium. Now, if you compare the cost of cast iron, this mild steel, that will be around 25 rupees a kg, whereas stainless steel, in which we have got the chromium, nickel, alloys, and everything, like 304 stainless steel, austenitic stainless steel, the per kg cost will be around 200 rupees. So all the components which are required and which tends to get corroded need not be made of stainless steel, but only its top surface can be modified. So you can have a cheap material and improve its surface characteristics by alloying only at the desired area on the top surface. So surface alloying is one of the methods. So a thin layer along with the appropriate alloying elements are melted by the laser to form a alloy layer. So if you take the example, schematic picture you can see here at the bottom, you have got the substrate represented by A, and you have got a another alloying element B, and you try to melt a thin layer, top layer of A, and add B, and allow it to homogeneously form a alloyed layer on the top surface. So here A plus B is going to now form the alloyed surface layer. Now, as I gave the example, that if you take a carbon steel or mild steel, in that small amount of chromium, if you put and try to alloy or chromium, just have on the top, alloy it with the carbon steel or mild steel, it is going to give you the characteristics of stainless steel. That is, it will have slightly improved hardness as well as the more corrosion resistance compared to mild steel. Okay. Now, in this case also, the surface characteristics is going to be determined by both alloying element as well as the base material, because here you are getting alloy of both a substrate material and the alloying element which you are adding from outside. Okay. So the surface characteristics is going to be limited by that. If you want to improve the surface characteristics altogether different than what the surface characteristics of the substrate material A is there, then what you can do, that you can have a altogether a different material like B and deposit a thin layer on the top surface, with very good metallurgical bond, but you don't allow this A material to be mixed and form alloy. For example, you take steel and on that we are trying to deposit a material like cobalt alloy. The cobalt alloy, this is one of the alloying element which is used for increase its hardness, and cobalt alloy, the trade name one is the stellite. Now it has got the cobalt and tungsten, some amount of chromium. Okay, so this has got high temperature wear resistance as well as better corrosion resistance. So it will give you very high temperature strength as well as against wear as well as against the corrosion. So here, as example has been shown, that this is the base material on which a thin layer of this light has been deposited, and since itself has got certain finite size, so all these are one single track which are overlapped with each other, and you have built two tracks over that to get certain desired height of that. Okay, and so the laser cladding involves bonding of a new material to the existing surface with excellent metallurgical bond with the substrate and with minimum dilution of the substrate material. Dilution means from substrate material, this clad material should not get diluted, otherwise its characteristics going to get deteriorate. Okay, so these are the two different methods in which you can again improve the surface characteristics. That is, you can improve its wear resistance, corrosion resistance, high temperature, fatigue strength. All these things you can improve. Okay, tailored surface property of a component to meet virtually any functional requirements without compromising in bulk properties. It improves the part's ability to withstand aggressive environment, like if you want to have improved corrosion resistance, you can improve that. Typically, an inexpensive substrate is alloyed or cladded with a more expensive material to achieve the desired surface properties. Like the base materials could be your mild steel, so it is relatively cheap, or it could be aluminum alloy, and then you can improve the surface characteristics of these components. Okay. Now, there are various methods of laser alloying and cladding. And the first is the two-step process. And here what we do that first, in the first step, we pre-place the powder which we want to alloy or clad on the top surface of the substrate A, and the laser power density and scan speed is controlled in such a way that a thin top layer of substrate A is melted along with the pre-placed material B as well. So your laser power density, that is per unit area, what is the power, and the scan speed is controlled in such a way that both the material top surface layer of A and B is melted, and as you move away, then molten material is going to get solidify, forming a very good homogeneous alloy material. Okay, in case of cladding, what we do that we don't melt the surface A, only the material B we melt, and however, because of the solid diffusion process, or a thin top layer of A, very thin, in the range of around 10 micron or so, is melted along with B, so that forms a very good metallurgical bond. So this is done of and in the single step, along with the laser beam, you also provide the powder, either from the side here, like here it has been shown, laser beam is coming vertically down here, here and the powder is being fed. When the powder is blowing into the laser beam, it gets melted, and then the molten material is just falling on the top surface of this substrate. A thin layer of the top surface may be also get melted, but you need to control the amount of substrate material getting melted and causing dilution that needs to be controlled. Okay, so here you are putting the laser beam and powder together. You can have this material which you want to alloy or clad in the form of wire, and you can put wire along with the laser beam and then melt and deposit on the top surface. Okay. So here the example is like you can surface alloying, you can do the titanium. Titanium surface can be alloyed with the carbon, or you can do nitriding by putting and forming titanium nitride. So it is going to form hard carbides or nitrides. And for doing the surface alloying of titanium with nitrogen, simply you melt the titanium top surface in nitrogen atmosphere, and the nitrogen is going to react titanium with titanium, and you are going to form titanium nitride, and it is going to make the surface very hard. You can have the cast iron and surface alloying with chromium, silicon, or carbon to make relatively cheap cast irons into superficially exotic iron you can make. You can contour, you can redesign the surface characteristics by putting different types of alloying elements. Steel, numerous alloying elements like chromium, molybdenum, boron, nickel, you can deposit on that as a alloying element. Aluminium, you can aluminum is basically very soft material, pure aluminum. On aluminum, you can put alloying element like silicon or carbon and nitrogen. So in that case, it is going to form alloy, and that alloy can improve the surface hardness drastically. Advantages: great flexibility, numerous elements you can design, localized treatment, little part distortion and surface upset. That is the control amount of heat is being provided by the laser, so the distortion degree of distortion is very less. Okay. Design components with different surface and bulk properties as desired. Okay, so you can do that. Okay. These are the some of the practical applications in industry. The turbine blade shroud interlocks, so the turbine blades are refurbished also, like here it is being built with back and depositing the layer. Okay, so lot of different companies are using this. Even in India, this Bharat Heavy Electricals Limited, BHEL, they are heavy engineering limit, they are using it. Then automotive components, the General Motors. This is the automotive components. You can see that this is a valve, piston valve. So this portion is only going to get wear out, and so here you do the laser hardening or laser cladding or surface alloying. Usually it is done surface cladding in order to improve the characteristics of this. Only a small thin annular zone needs to be hardened. Then valve stem, valve seat, aluminum blocks, then steam and salt water valve. Now this steam and salt water, salt water is a corrosive environment, so you need to improve the surface characteristics to improve the corrosion property. Offshore drill parts for oil industries. Offshore means that if you are going the seawater, again there is a corrosion property is desired on the engineering components. So all these things are being nowadays improved by laser surface hardening. Now, the last applications of laser, which is very interesting, and because of that, I am just spending some time on that, is this additive manufacturing. And what is additive manufacturing? You must be hearing a lot about 3D printing to make 3D components, either the model you can make, or you can make even the functional components. So much research and development has been done that ultimately has been a well-defined standard has been established, and according to that, that additive manufacturing has been defined in this following way. So additive manufacturing, commonly known as 3D printing, can be defined as the process of joining materials to make parts from 3D model data, usually layer upon layer, as opposed to subtractive manufacturing and formative manufacturing methodology. Conventional materials, if you want to make let us suppose if you are making a cup of this sort, then in conventional method, what we'll take a rod and put on the turning machine and remove the material, scoop out the material from this central zone, and then machine it to give this shape. So that is usually the subtractive manufacturing process. Other is that if you have got a thin sheet, I can form it by putting in a pressing in a mold and form a cup with a sheet. So these are the conventional method. But in case of additive manufacturing process, what we do, you first design that 3D component on the computer. You make a 3D model. Then you generate the coordinate data by making that STL file of that, in which the surface is going to be represented by a triangle. So you now have the coordinates generated where you need to have the materials to be deposited. Now what we do, you take another software which it is going to find out the coordinates at each thin layer, and the layer thickness could be of the order of around 50 micron to 500 micron or so, and wherever the materials needs to be deposited, you try to get the data for each layer. Now this data is now fed in a system of 3D printing machine. So what you do with that data and the like a heat source, you start depositing the powder or material in the fed in the form of wire, and deposit at those points where the material needs to be deposited. And thin a layer is first built, then on the top of that another layer is built, and like that you go on building. So for this cup, wherever you need, so in this periphery, in the annular zone, you need to deposit material, so you go on depositing material layer by layer, and you can just build it like this, and you get the 3D component. So this is the basic principle of 3D printing or additive manufacturing. So here the basic process for rapid prototyping or additive manufacturing is the 5 steps are there. Create a computer aided design, the CAD model of the component using any solid modelers such as Pro Engineer. So there are a lot of different types of softwares are there. Convert the CAD model to universally used STL, that is the stereolithographic files, standard template library format. This in this STL, 3D surface is represented as an assembly of planar triangles. Coordinates of vertices are stored in STL file in order to deposit powders. Now the slice the STL file into thin cross-sectional layers. Layer thickness could be of the order of 10 micron to around 700 micron thick, depending upon the build technique you are using. Then generate auxiliary structure to support delicate features such as overhang, internal cavities, and thin walled section during rapid prototyping or additive manufacturing. Construct the model one layer a top another from monomers. The material could be monomer or polymers, paper or powder material. Okay, powdered metal. So we are going to consider this powdered metal, and for with the powder metal there are two ways in which the laser has been utilized to do the additive manufacturing or 3D printing. One method is powder bed laser fusion, which is also known as a selective laser sintering, SLS or SLM, that is the selective laser melting. And another method is laser direct metal deposition, LDMD. Okay. And the fourth process, the fifth step is that clean and finish the model. Okay. So here, if you consider the powder bed laser fusion, what you do that you have got a platform on which you spread the powder first uniformly. So here the powder is being put with a powder container. There is a wiper which just wipes out the extra powder from the top surface of the powder layer. Now you have got a very uniform thin layer of powder on this platform. Now with the laser, using that CAD model, STL conversion, slicing, and then getting the data. So wherever now with that data, wherever you want to deposit the laser, deposit the powder or fuse the powder, there you scan the laser beam, and there this is going to now fuse and may build a one layer. Then you move the platform down by around the same amount of layer thickness which you are going to again deposit. So like from 10 to 700 micron, you can just put it down, and then again you repeat the same process. You put the powder again with the wiper, you remove the extra powder, and again as per the data generated of the 3D model, you just again scan the laser on the top of that. So like that you repeat and you can generate the component. So this is known as a powder bed laser fusion process. Okay. So here you can see that how various components, intricate components you can build. This is the impeller has been built. This is the bio implant has been built. This is the automobile component has been built. Okay. So all these things were done in one of the machine which you have got in mechanical engineering department of IIT Kharagpur. All these were built here. Okay. Second method is your direct laser metal deposition. This is basically extension of the laser cladding process, you can say, layer by layer deposition to build 3D object using 3D CAD model, and you use a CNC machine, powder feeder, and laser beam you use. So what you do, you have the object and imaging system, you design the 3D CAD model, you generate mathematical data and analyze the design is okay. So after you have made the STL and thin layer data you have generated, you take a laser, and along with the laser from the coaxial direction, the powder is also fed, and layer by layer you just deposit, and after deposition you can get the component built like this. Okay, so here layer by layer you just go on depositing on this. So once one layer is deposited, you take the laser beam and powder feeder upwards slightly by around 100 to 200 or 500 micron. another layer is built, again you pull it up. So you just go on pulling the laser and powder feeder slightly up, and then every time when you are scanning, you are depositing on the pre-deposited layer. Thereby, you can build the component like this. So here that you can see that impellers are made, walls are made. So here schematically has been shown. So here the laser beam and powder is coming coaxially, and you can deposit. Okay. These are the laser additive manufacturing has got a lot of advantages and a few limitations. This is a new technological tool for manufacturing industry, for prototype model development, and for producing low volume functional part. Also, you can directly make the functional part. Several striking advantages, as you can see, any complex part can be built directly from the 3D CAD model. So you can just make the model on your computer or laptop and then generate the data, and using any 3D machine, you can build that. Reduce lead time from months and year to days and weeks you can have. So you can very easily analyze the design on the computer laptop before you start building up. You can do the mechanical, the stress analysis, structural analysis also, and see that how the strength of the component is there. So all these things can be done on the with the software before you start building up. So with a few trials, you can get the final components built. Okay, so because of that, any new component can be built in a very short time, relatively short time compared to conventional method. So up to 80% time, you can say. Reduced cost due to reduced time, and also reduced wastage of material due to less design faults and mistakes. Plus, as you can see that here the material is deposited with the powder. You do not start with a bulk big ingot or any rod and then turn out or mill out the material, but here you are just depositing the material at the desired places. Therefore, the material consumption is also less. Further, you have got less design faults and mistakes because you can optimize or analyze the design on the while you are designing through the 3D model. You can also see and analyze its mechanical properties. Improved quality testing at design stage, several iteration before production you can do. Okay, so these are the very obvious advantages of additive or rapid manufacturing process with laser. However, there are certain concerns. There is a problem of shrinkage because it is a fusion process. So the material is getting melted, and then when it is solidified, there could be shrinkage, and that can cause shrinkage problems like even micro cracks could be developed. It can cause some distortion because of the thermal stresses, because each layer is getting heated up multiple times when you are building one layer over other. So there could be some distortions because of the some thermal stresses in residual stresses. Surface accuracy, because you are using powder and depositing layer by layer, and you are representing the surface with triangle. Therefore, there could be certain surface inaccuracies, surface roughness could be there. Mechanical and metallurgical properties that also needs to be tested, because unlike casting, where the entire material is casted and cooled in one go, here you are depositing layer by layer. So the heating and cooling cycles may not be the same everywhere. And as you will be knowing that the microstructure depends on the thermal history. Since the thermal history at different part of this additive manufacturing while you are depositing here, like here from the top to bottom to top, when you are scanning the laser beam and depositing, the thermal history may not be the same everywhere. So the microstructure and therefore the mechanical properties may not be uniform. So these things needs to be optimized, and that is the area where a lot of research is going on. Okay. Okay, so there are a couple of numerical problems are given here pertaining to laser cutting and laser drilling. So you can go through these things, and later on the next week we can again dwell upon this before we go for a class test or so. Okay. So these are the two problems, three problems are given here, and so you can go through that. I'm not going to discuss this today, and we'll just take a break before we discuss the next topic. Okay. So now, if you have got any question, you can ask me. From this laser surface engineering, surface hardening, cladding, alloying, and rapid manufacturing, if you have got any question, you may ask. Okay. No question? In that case, what we do that we just wait for break for around another 4-5 minutes, and then we'll just come back and then discuss the laser electron beam.